Hey guys, how's it going? Today, we're going to be reviewing the recently returning 140 RPM legendary hand cannon Spare Rations. But before we go any further, I'm sure you guys have seen one of the hundreds of Spare Rations videos that have been uploaded here on YouTube in the last month or so. And for that reason, you guys are probably wondering why you should watch this video instead of one of the many others out there. And I'll tell you what, I guarantee you that this video goes more in depth than any other video on the entire site of YouTube. I got over 1,000 kills on Spare Rations, used all the rules you should consider using extensively, and much more. With all that being said, sub to the channel because I'm trying to reach 5k subs before the end of the summer. Like the video if you're feeling generous, and let's get straight into the review. So something I like to do for all my reviews that use multiple weapon roles is include the shader of the role that's being used in gameplay in the top right corner of the screen, which allows you to find out which role is being used in gameplay via comparing that shader to the weapons that are currently being shown on screen. Also, this video is in multiple sections, all of which you can see by the chapters featured down in the progress bar below. With all that being said, let's get into building the perfect Spare Rations role. Before I start picking the perks I want on a weapon I'm going for, I like to see what stats will be best to go for on said weapon. And for Spare Rations, those are going to be most importantly range, and then also stability when we can. The reason for this is when comparing Spare Rations to other hand cannons, those are the two areas it is lacking in the most, and in my opinion, they are the two most important stats on hand cannons. For that reason, we're going to be starting off with Masterwork and are going for range. If you don't get range, then I would recommend stability, but I'd really try to get a roll with range here, as every point of range we can get on this weapon really does matter. Now moving on to barrels and magazines. This weapon is not craftable, meaning you can't always get the perfect roll, so I'm going to be suggesting a couple perks in each column. The first of which being high caliber rounds and armor piercing rounds. They both give 5 range each, but their additional effects only work in PvE. Then we have Light Mag, which gives 5 range and also 15 reload speed. As for the best magazine perk, I'm gonna have to say Rico rounds, as they give 5 range and an additional 10 stability. As for the barrels, I would recommend small bore, then hammer forged rifling, and finally full bore. Now I typically don't recommend full bore, as the hit to stability typically isn't worth it. But in this case, we really need the range, and if you're able to get Rico rounds, then you can basically negate the negative effects of full bore. Now moving on to the third column of perks. There are a couple PvE perks here that I won't be considering, those being Subsistence and Offhand Strike. They have their use in PvE, but I would highly advise against taking them into the Crucible. Now, that leaves us with our 4 PvP viable perks: Snapshot Sights, Rapid Hit, Slide Shot, and Moving Target. Taking a look at these perks, Snapshot Sights isn't necessarily bad, it just only increases your ADS time, and that really isn't that helpful on hand cannons. As for Moving Target, I think it's pretty good, as it gives plus 10 aim assist and also increases your side to side movement speed while ADS'd. I just think our last 2 perks are a little bit better. Slide Shot, because it grants plus 30 stability, plus 20 range, and also reloads 15% of the magazine 3 seconds after sliding. And Rapid Hit, as for each headshot it gives a stacking buff of both stability and reload speed up to 25 stability and 50 reload speed. I personally go with Slide Shot here, as I slide a bunch and that extra 20 range and free reload is very nice. But if you end up going for Kill Clip in the 4th column, then I would probably recommend using Rapid Hit, as the extra reload speed is very nice for reloading after a kill. Now let's move on to the 4th column perks. Off the bat, we have 3 perks that I would highly advise against using in PvP, those being Vorpal Weapon, as it only works against Guardians in their super, and you are probably shooting people in their supers about 10% of the time, and I'm not going to be using a perk that gets that little usage. Focus Fury, as you have to hit 7 headshots without reloading for a 20% damage increase when Kill Clip exists. And lastly, Kinetic Tremors, because it's a PvE perk and really has no place in PvP, as you have to hit 4 to 6 shots in my testing on a single target to even proc the perk. And I don't know about you guys, but when it takes me 4 to 6 shots with my hand cannon to kill a single opponent, I'm typically not in a winning position. Now that we have those perks out of the way, we are left with Swashbuckler, Kill Clip, and Opening Shot. Swashbuckler is okay, but not as great as the others, because it gives a stacking damage buff up to 33%, which requires either 1 melee kill or 5 weapon kills. And that sounds good, but when you consider that it maintains the same time to kill, it only gives 2 body shots of forgiveness that you can obtain with Kill Clip, it's kinda hard to recommend over Kill Clip. Kill Clip is much better, as it gives you a 25% damage increase for simply getting a weapon kill and then reloading. And when you stack that with Rapid Hit, it gets even better. But I don't think it's quite as good as Opening Shot, as Kill Clip really isn't that helpful in 3v3 game modes due to the requirement of getting a kill. And when it's being used in 6s, it really didn't affect the outcome of fights much, due to the fact that it just allows you to hit one body shot and 2 headshots instead of 3 headshots. And for that reason, I'm gonna have to say opening shot is the best perk in the 4th column. But what makes it so good? Well, it grants 20 aim assist and 25 range on your first shot after not shooting for 3 seconds. So there you have it, my favorite spare rations role, and all the perks that you should consider using yourself. But that's not quite the end of the video yet. It's time for how spare rations stacks up against other 140 RPM hand cannons. When comparing spare rations to other top tier 140 RPM legendary hand cannons that I could think of, it became very clear what areas spare rations starts to struggle in, those areas being stability and range. Spare rations is beaten out by every other hand cannon that I chose to compare it to in the range department. And when we look at stability, it doesn't get much better, as it only has higher stability than Rose, and it literally only has one more stability point. When you consider the fact that I'm always talking about how absolutely vital range and stability are on hand cannons, it becomes very hard to see how there could be a part of my script titled expressing my immense love for spare rations. But that's only before you compare spare rations to those same hand cannons and look at their handling and reload speed. It completely blows them out of the water, with no other hand cannon even coming within 15 handling, and the other hand cannon that comes close to reload speed being Rose. It's a very similar situation when looking at aim assistance, with only 2 higher values coming from Rose with 2 additional points and Fatebringer with 1. And the situation stays the same, with spare rations being the only hand cannon out of this whole bunch that gets 100 recoil direction, and also has the largest magazine at base. Now, before I did mention that I typically prioritize range and stability above all else, and that is true. However, they are only the stats that contribute to your damage fall off or how far away your target can be before you start doing less damage, and stability the stat that affects your flinch resistance. And I normally prioritize these 2 stats due to the fact that they both contribute to keeping your TTK or time to kill as high as possible. As if one of your bullets doesn't do full damage, or if you end up missing a headshot because you're being flinched so much, your time to kill instantly drops along with your chances of winning that fight. But range and stability aren't everything. Every other action you partake in, pulling your weapon out, putting it away, making sure you hit your opponents in the head, controlling the recoil of your weapon to make sure you stay on target, reloading your weapon. All of these actions are enhanced by their corresponding stats. When you combine all great stats in every single category, you get, in my opinion, the best feeling hand cannon in the entire game. And for that reason, spare rations is still one of, if not my favorite hand cannon in the entire game after all this time. Another thing to mention is, what if Bungie decides to make range matter less on hand cannons like they did for SMGs? Make the range gap smaller from the low side to the high side. Just something to think about. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love seeing all your beautiful faces, and have a wonderful day.